All right, welcome back into the Sports Stove podcast. We are now joined by the UFC fighter, the one and only Smilin Sam Alvey. Sam, how you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. How are you, sir?
Doing wonderful as well. I kind of want to go way back to get started here. According to Tapology, you started your professional MMA career in 2008. What is it that kind of got you started in the sport of MMA?
I didn't do anything that got me started. I just somebody offered me a fight in a cage. I said, okay. I never trained anything. I never watched the UFC. I didn't know anything about it. As far as I was concerned, Jackie Chan and the Ninja Turtles were legit, and that was really it. I wish everyone assumes I did something, but no, I didn't. I didn't even watch it.
So that first fight, then going into it, what was your expectations and how were they met?
I just thought I'd hit the guy and he'd fall over, and it worked. I didn't know the rules. I didn't know that if I hit him, the fight wasn't over. So I hit him, and I celebrated. And said, "No, it's still on." I said, "Oh, okay." He got back up. Round ended, and then round two, he beat the brakes off me. Round two, but I almost won. If I knew the rules, I would have finished him in the first round.
How much has the sport changed since 2008, if at all?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. What'd you say, sir?
How much has the sport changed, if it's changed at all, since 2008?
Well, the athletes in the sport are far more technical, far better than they used to be. My story of coming into cage fighting, I don't think it could happen anymore. With as good as the athletes and the fighters have become, the amount of technique that is in it now is just 1,000 times more than it used to be. The actual sport itself, just a couple little changes. Such as elbows. As an amateur, when I first started, you could elbow as an amateur. Now you can't do that. And so that was really the biggest change is as far.
We lost them. We got you back. What's harder in your career now versus what was before earlier in your career, and what's easier now for you in the sport as a whole?
You know what's harder? Well, it's harder is I just turned 35, so just typical aging has made everything a little bit harder. Everything hurts a lot more now than it did 10 years ago. But as far as ease goes, I've been doing this for so long now. I mean, it takes a special kind of guy to be able to give me a challenge in the practice room. I really can just, I've got so much experience and so many years and all that built up working towards it. Um, towards my sport that most people, like, I have a pretty easy time with them.
How different was it this last year fighting with no fans?
I did it once before when I was
Oh.
on the Ultimate Fighter, the fight to get into the house. You're in front of no one, so I got to do it once before. And I prefer the fans. I like being able to share what I do with the world in person. But I don't feel it affected me all that much either way.
It sounds like, a lot of the guys have kind of said it's different, but it wasn't as strange. Of course, you've done it once before. It wasn't as strange as they expected it to be. The fights were actually, there's a ton of great fights throughout 2020 and even here in 2021, but definitely a different atmosphere. I mean, the other night when they had fans back in the stands and just the noise and buffer with the announcements and everything was just, you forgot how great it was to have the fans in the stands, and then you do most of your fights with your wife there also. How cool is that she is that involved in what you're doing as far as fighting?
I wouldn't have the career that I've had without her. She's my manager. She's the reason I ended up at Team Quest here in Southern California. I mean, I can't give her enough credit for what I've been able to accomplish with this sport, and I've been just truly blessed to have such a good woman in my corner.
When you're looking at fights now, you've kind of went between two weight classes in your most recent, the last 3 years or so. Are you your last fight? You went back to middleweight. Is that where you're looking to stick around for a while, or light heavyweight?
No, I think I'll stay at 85. I'm bigger than most people there. I can still make it. Um, and there's a lot of good fights to be had there. So I plan on staying down at 85, but I'm always willing to go wherever the UFC wants me.
What's that weight cut like, especially now versus 10 years ago?
Yeah, it sucked. I can do it. I'll never miss weight, but man, it sucked.
There's a lot of conversation about weight cutting and the dangers of it. Of course, we saw this by the time this airs, we'll be past the Saturday fights, but we've seen just this weekend where they're struggling to stand up on their own and stuff like that. Is there anything that the UFC can do, or the sport as a whole can do, to improve weight cuts, or is it just kind of just part of the game and that's what it is?
This is part of the game, and I always hate people talking about changing rules for that. Weight cutting, it's part of the game. You can do it if you plan it out right. It's part of the sport. I mean, wrestling does it. Wrestling does it a little different than we do, but it's. I've had terrible, miserable weight cuts. I've cut 42 pounds in 10 days, even. That's my record, and I've made it to 170 before. I have done some terrible, miserable weight cuts, but I've done them. And for people to be falling over, they did something wrong. It didn't just happen. They did something wrong.
How do you plan a weight cut, as far as when do you start the process of moving down and those sorts of things?
Well, the weight cut and the weight loss are two different things. So, I mean, the whole camp you spend dieting down. You have to be very strict on your diet, and you have to know what you're putting in, when you're putting it in, and you've got to be very strict with it. But then the actual weight cut is you should. It takes practice, and I recommend all my amateurs have a tough weight cut, and so they can start learning how to do it then. And then throughout their career, if they get bigger or smaller, they can adjust accordingly. But they should learn as an amateur and what it takes to cut weight.
Going back to some degrees to your wife, and talking about her being your manager, her being there in your corner, different things like that. Recently, there's been a lot of conversation about the importance of having good people around you in, I say, the fight game, in the sport of MMA. A lot going on with Diego Sanchez and Joshua Fabio right now, and thoughts around that, centered around that. How important is the people that you have around you, both with training and just day-to-day work towards the sport?
Yeah, I love Diego. I've been around the world with him once or twice, 2 or 3 times, and he's just he's a unique individual, to say the least. But he really is. He's a good dude. I don't know anything about his Fabio guy. I've heard what everyone says. It almost sounds like, I mean, if half of what they say is true, Diego's in a cult. And so I don't know what to think about that. I believe there was some video just put out right now where like Diego's hung upside down by his ankles, and he's just getting punched and kicked in the. Yeah, that's the wrong guy to be hanging around. I mean, even if he's the world's greatest coach, he's not the world's greatest coach. You don't. I mean, that's basic. If you're hanging around people that want to do that to you, that's somebody, his family, his old coaches, his friends should step in and try and talk to him or try and save him. If I knew him a little bit better, I might be the guy to do it, but that's not right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely controversial. A lot going on, of course, with that right now for sure. Other big UFC news is, Jon Jones. I'm interested on your opinion on this. I assume every fighter agrees, hey, go get your money. But those are kind of the kind of fights that as fans we're sitting here going, hey, we want to see these things. I want to see Jon Jones fight again, but I don't necessarily feel bad for him when he's asking for as much money as he's asking for, reportedly. But nonetheless, these big fights that are happening, guys are moving up and down out of weight classes all the time and stuff like that. What does it do for the sport to have guys like Jon Jones, who's somewhat controversial, but kind of the top name of the sport at the moment, holding out and not fighting?
Well, Jon Jones, what's controversial about him is the cheater. I mean, he spent his entire life cheating. Between the PEDs and the eye pokes, the groin shots, and the illegal elbows, he has spent his entire life cheating. So I don't feel bad for him not getting the money he wants. That being said, you can't argue he is one of the bigger names in the sport. And I think he's playing it well. If ever I had to fight Francis Ngannou, I would say, I'm not doing it unless you give me $100 million. And they would say, well, we're not going to give you $100 million. Like, well, I ain't fighting him. So Jon Jones is doing the smart thing by demanding way more than the fight is worth.
Definitely.
So power to him, I guess. And at this point, if he asks for more than he can get, he's not fighting him. He's just not making what he wants to make. Even though, it's pretty obvious he is terrified of Ngannou, like everyone should be.
Ngannou's a scary dude. There's no doubt about that.
He is, and Jones gets hit. Jones's biggest advantage, he's got 84-inch arms. Every time he fights a guy with long arms like Dom Reyes, Thiago Santos, or even Lionheart has long arms, but didn't. Jones did pretty. Gustafsson. Jones gets hit. But none of those guys hit like Francis Ngannou does. Jones' head movement isn't great. He just uses his range well. And Ngannou would crush that range. Immediately.
Well, this is going to get back around to you in just a second. But Dominick Reyes, a lot of people said he won that fight against Jon Jones. But since that decision went against him, he's been on a losing streak now. Things have changed drastically for Dominick Reyes. How does a loss in a fight that you feel strongly that you won, and maybe the rest of the world feels strongly that you won, how does that affect you going forward in your next fights?
It's different for everyone. And Dom, he had a hell of a fight against Jones. I had him winning. I thought he was up maybe 4-1, but definitely 3-2. I had him up. And then he didn't take much time off, and then he went and fought Jan. He got knocked out pretty hard against Jan, and Jan hits pretty hard. Took some time off, and now he just had this amazing fight a few weeks ago. Well, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was just amazing against Yuri, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Just an amazing fight, and he got caught. It was that one wasn't a technique. That was just an awesome spinning elbow. That wasn't lack of technique on Dom. That was a great fight. That a spinning elbow that was only apparently it's only the third spinning elbow in UFC history that knocked somebody out. And so people throw them all the time. They don't land often, but when they do, it's just people remember it.
Yeah.
So, he's fought. Dom has fought 3 of the best in the world in his last 3 fights. He's come out on the wrong end of on all of them, even though I felt he beat Jones, and this last one was very close. Hopefully he takes a little time off, rests his brain, and comes back and gets an easier fight.
When you get knocked out, how long does it take you to feel normal again? And when you're back training and stuff like that, to I guess, I don't know if being afraid's the right word for it, but to be less cautious, I guess.
I don't know. I've never been knocked out. So I really don't know. I've been choked out, and honestly, I get choked out all the time. And you wake up and you feel great. You feel it's so funny. You get choked out, and it's like 10 seconds. You wake back up. You feel like you've taken an 8-hour nap. You just feel energized and ready to go. Every now and then your legs will cramp. But most of the time, you just wake up saying, "Oh wow, let's do it again."
You're coming off of 6 fights that haven't gone the way you want them to go. You had the draw not long ago, and I was all in on you your last fight. But where are you right now? What's ahead? How are you preparing? What are you changing anything, or what are you doing to get back on the winning way?
Oh, well, shoot. Yeah. If you look at my last 6 fights, I've got an excuse for everything, and it's the wrong way to be. So I'm trying to limit the excuses. Though I felt I won 2 of my last 3.
Hmm.
I definitely lost my last one. But as far as what I want to do, change the way, I'm going to start sparring more. I'm going to travel around a little bit more. I enjoy sparring. I love it. So I'm going to team up with my good friend Sean Strickland, and we're going to travel in Southern California, Vegas, and just beat everyone up or get beat up. And I think that'll help make that'll help force me to learn new stuff.
Hmm. So, and your current, most recent training sparring's not been something you've done a whole lot of.
I've done enough. I've just done it with the same guys. I mean,
Okay.
as good as Jared Van Daren, Dom Reyes, and Jamal Pogus and Dan Henderson are, I spar with the same guys pretty often, and so you get comfortable. And as much as I
Hmm.
try not to be comfortable, and it's not even that I win every round, but I do enough of them with the same guys over and over. I've got I fall into habits, and I've been in the sport for over 70 fights. People are starting to figure out my habits. So I got to try and develop new habits, better habits, unexpected habits.
Do you have a plan for when your next fight's going to be?
I have no plan. No, I as of now, I've not been cut by the UFC. I'm praying a little bit every night that they don't cut me, that they give me one more shot. But at this point, I couldn't blame them if they cut me. There'd be no hard feelings. I would go and fight my ass off somewhere else and try and get back in the UFC because I love the organization. I love the people I've been around for the last 7 years, and I would like to spend the rest of my career with them.
Do you know when your career you plan on moving on to other things? You have a timeline or a age that you're saying this is kind of when I want to be done?
If I could fight for another 10 years, that'd be awesome. We'll see if it happens. Yeah, I feel great. I still love doing it. There's no part of this I dislike. I'm not injured. God, I might knock on wood, but I'm like the only 35-year-old fighter that's not injured. I don't have any lingering injuries.
Hmm.
Um, and I still enjoy the hours upon hours of hard work and soreness.
So, last thing I have for you. Recently, George St. Pierre was on Joe Rogan's podcast. One of the things he said that caught my attention was he talked about the sacrifice, and you know the sacrifice that fighters make a lot of times, but he specifically mentioned the sacrifice families make along with that. Can you speak to that idea of what you sacrifice to be in the sport and you as your family's together on this, your wife's very involved with you as well. What's the sacrifice involved for the family, the whole family unit, I guess, with being a part of the sport of MMA?
I don't know if I agree with GSP in that, and maybe I could see his point in with some people, but I don't feel it's the case with me. I truly love what I do, and I think GSP is notoriously not liked what he does. I think he's always been the guy that's he retired young. He came back for one fight and then he's retired again. I'm a guy. I love every second of this. I get to hang out with my kids all day. I get to work out whenever I want to work out, and I've got my schedule, but I get to take my kids with me to work out. They watch me do it. I get to come home and I get to watch fights with them. I train them. I coach at my gym. I am so involved with my family because of what I do that if I had any other job, I wouldn't be able to spend half the amount of time I spend with my kids. I mean, if I had a 9 to 5 or any other job, I would be at the office, at the building, away from them. Right now, I get to spend my days with my family. My wife is there as well. I mean, sacrifice, I guess every now and then I don't get to go to Legoland with them because I got to work out, which really is a sacrifice. God, I hate going to those places. But yeah, I guess they like playing on the trampoline, and I don't do that with them as much as I'd like to because I'm sore all the time. So I guess that would be a big sacrifice that I don't get to play on the trampoline with them. But I do almost everything else with them. I make sure I get everything else done.
All right. Any advice for young people looking to get into the sport? Smart things to do, things to stay away from, anything like that?
Don't drink, don't do drugs. I mean, seriously, weed, it's very addictive. As much as you can argue it's not, it is. And I have seen so many young amateurs, almost pros, just get lost in weed. So stay away from the drugs, guys. It really is. It is, quote unquote, harmless as it may seem. Or they find the excuse, especially with weed. I don't know what it is about weed, but especially with that, people always, well, it helps me relax. It helps my. It's like, no, it doesn't. It makes you less motivated to do the next workout. So no, that's what other people. I promise you, it's you too. So stay off the drugs, stay off the alcohol as best you can, and enjoy it. It is such. I mean, it takes a toll on your body. It is hard work. I limp everywhere I go, and I probably will the rest of my life because of this sport. Something's always tight or loose or this or that. So try to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it's not too late to play baseball, or football, or soccer, or golf, or tennis. Just do the best you can to enjoy your workouts because they don't get any easier.
Awesome. Hey, this has been great. This has been Smilin Sam Alvey. Sam, anything people can follow you at? You got anything going on? I know last year you were doing some stuff with foster parenting and stuff like that you were promoting. Anything you want to promote?
I'm not doing that promotion anymore, but I have adopted my first foster baby here a few months ago, so that's pretty nice. But if anyone ever wants to talk to me, hit me up on Instagram. I'm huge on TikTok. I love TikTok. So if you want to hit me up there, I answer everything I can. I do a lot of videos on there too. So hit me up on TikTok and just enjoy the sport with me.
Awesome. Sam, thank you so much. We'll be looking out for your next fight, hopefully in the UFC. And but we continue to follow you. Good luck on everything moving forward. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me on, sir.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.